and welcome to another edition of Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Layo Olarinde. On the program this week, displaced families from Sudan's El Fasher face dire conditions in North Darfur, and children in Gaza return to makeshift classrooms amid a fragile ceasefire. We begin in Sudan, where the humanitarian crisis is worsening after the fall of El Fasher to the Rapid Support Forces. Tens of thousands have fled the city, escaping what the United Nations calls a wave of atrocities after nearly 18 months under siege. As civilians make their way through armed checkpoints and dangerous roads, aid agencies are also struggling to reach the most in need.
The aftermath of the Rapid Support Forces capture of El Fasher has been marked by fear, chaos, and mass displacement. UN agencies estimate that more than 82,000 people have fled the city in recent days, with many making the dangerous journey towards Tawila in North Darfur. Civilians described fleeing through armed checkpoints and extortion points, facing arrest, looting, and harassment along the way. Women and children have been the most vulnerable, with reports of widespread sexual violence by armed groups during attacks and flight.
What forced us to leave El Fasher was the shelling. It was extremely intense, in addition to the famine. The price of food skyrocketed, and we had no choice but to run.
In neighboring Chad, families are also arriving at displaced camps with almost nothing.
Armed groups came and looted all our belongings. They beat us, assaulted us, and killed many people. Here, food rations are no longer sufficient, and only some of us benefit from them. We need more water, healthcare, and education. The number of refugees has increased, and humanitarian aid is insufficient.
The United Nations Refugee Agency says it's providing life-saving assistance to displaced families, including temporary shelters, cash support, and counseling for those traumatized by the violence. However, reaching people remains extremely difficult, as many are trapped by ongoing clashes or blocked roads.
The stories that I've heard today of what happened in El Fasher just 2 years ago and those families that fled the circumstances at that time has resurrected a trauma that we can only imagine the harrowing experiences that people are fleeing from El Fasher today. It's a city that had been under siege for 500 days. These are people in desperate need, and there are also people that are arriving to Chad that need everything from a safe place to be, to shelter, to clean water, to an ability to be able to restart their lives.
While the Rapid Support Forces say they have accepted a proposed humanitarian truce backed by the United States, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, the Sudanese army has rejected it, vowing instead to continue fighting. The violence has left El Fasher in ruins. Homes, markets, and hospitals lie destroyed. Aid workers say the maternity hospital has been attacked several times in recent weeks, and medical staff have been abducted. The United Nations warns that as many as 200,000 people remain trapped there with no food, medicine, or safe passage.
Now, traumatized civilians are still trapped inside the Sudanese city of El Fasher in Darfur, and they are being prevented from leaving. I fear that the abominable atrocities such as summer executions, rape, and ethnically motivated violence are continuing within the city. And for those who manage to flee, the violence doesn't end, because the exit routes themselves have been the scenes of unimaginable cruelty. At the same time, I issue a stark warning about events unfolding in Kordofan. Since the capture of Al-Fasher, the civilian casualties, the destruction and mass displacement there have been mounting. There is no sign of de-escalation. To the contrary, developments on the ground indicate clear preparations for intensified hostilities, with everything that implies for its long-suffering people.
The RSF has been fighting the Sudanese army since April 2023, when a power struggle between their leaders erupted into a civil war. Since then, more than 20,000 people have been killed and 33,000 injured, according to UN estimates. Around 12 million have been forcibly displaced, while 25.6 million are facing acute food insecurity.
In Gaza, schools are slowly reopening after 2 years of relentless war that has left much of the territory in ruins. Teachers are struggling to continue lessons under harsh conditions, with trauma and displacement affecting both learning and focus.
The scale of destruction in Gaza's education system is staggering. Since October 2023, more than 300,000 students have been cut off from formal schooling. Nearly all UN schools, 97%, have been damaged or destroyed. Many now serve as shelters for displaced families. At the Deir al-Balah Primary School in central Gaza, children learn in classrooms still scarred by war. Broken desks and walls stand alongside makeshift beds for families who have nowhere else to go. Despite the damage, some students say they are happy to be back.
I stopped going to school for 2 years, and now we have returned. I love learning. We need books and pens because the war stopped us from studying.
To support education in shelters, the UN Refugee Agency for Palestinians has created temporary learning spaces and remote classes.
So far, more than 62,000 students have benefited. Around 300,000 more are receiving remote lessons with the help of 8,000 teachers. The children of Gaza, who have lived through 2 years of war and suffering, deserve the right to education.
Still, the challenges are immense. Families say fear and displacement have left lasting scars on children. Many have forgotten how to read and write.
We must teach our children ourselves so they don't forget. Fear has taken over their minds. They think only of rockets and airstrikes.
Psychologists warn that more than 80% of Gaza's children show signs of severe trauma. Amid the devastation, Gaza's universities are also trying to recover. At the Islamic University of Gaza, students are returning for the first time in 2 years.
We began restoring a small building to receive new students. Classes will start online, but we hope to return to in-person learning soon.
For many young Palestinians, the reopening of schools represents a fragile sense of hope after years of war. But with most of Gaza's education infrastructure destroyed, the road to rebuilding remains long and uncertain.
Over Over in Syria, a UNICEF-backed initiative is bringing hope to children who have gone years without school. The YEM Educational Project in Latakia is setting up temporary classroom tents for students whose schools were destroyed during the conflict. The effort comes as the U.S. announces that Syria will join the international coalition against the Islamic State group. It's a major shift in the Middle East policy.
This is the village of Salma in northwestern Syria. Here, children are attending lessons inside a tent, surrounded by the remains of destroyed schools. The project was launched to meet urgent educational needs after the war destroyed or damaged nearly all local schools.
Our project YEM Education was launched because most schools here were destroyed or damaged. The aim is to help both local and returning students resume learning, especially those who can't yet read or write Arabic.
Students say the project has restored a sense of normalcy.
I miss my friends. Coming here feels like being back at school. I love Arabic and want to be a teacher one day.
Parents also say the initiative has helped their children recover emotionally.
It's a great initiative. It has improved our children's learning and mental health. It's much better than staying at home. We thank those helping and hope the government repairs the schools soon.
UNICEF estimates that 2.4 million children remain out of school in Syria, with over 1 million more at risk of dropping out. 1/3 of schools are unusable, either destroyed, damaged, or converted into shelters. The agency warns that the country now faces a lost generation of children growing up without education. Those in school often face overcrowded classrooms, trauma, poor materials, and long travel distances due to displacement. Efforts are underway to rebuild schools and retrain teachers through UNICEF's Back to Learning campaign, which focuses on displaced and at-risk children. Other initiatives include teacher training, flexible learning programs, and support for families struggling to keep their children in class. Meanwhile, the United Nations Human Rights Office says enforced disappearances remain a major concern. Nearly 100,000 people are still missing from the Assad era, and dozens more have disappeared since the regime's fall.
Since the fall of Assad, some families have been reunited with their loved ones, while many still live with the distress of not knowing where they are or what happened to them. The fate and whereabouts of all those who have gone missing, both before and after the fall of the former government, must urgently be clarified.
But in a major political shift, the United States has announced a partial suspension of sanctions on Syria following a historic meeting between President Donald Trump and Syria's new leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa. The first U.S.-Syrian summit at the White House since 1946. Sharaa, once a rebel commander with a $10 million bounty on his head, met Trump in Washington seeking to rebuild ties and secure sanction relief for his war-torn country.
Well, I have an agreement with him. He's a very strong leader. He comes from a very tough place, and he's a tough guy. I liked him. I get along with him. The new president of Syria. And we'll do everything we can to make Syria successful, because that's part of the Middle East. We have peace now in the Middle East, first time that anyone can remember that ever happening. Syria is a very big part of the Middle East, very important part. If you look back at Syria for years, they had the doctors, the lawyers, they had so many of the great intellects. It's an amazing place with great people, and we want to see Syria be successful along with the rest of the Middle East. So I have confidence that he'll be able to do the job, absolutely.
Syria will now be the 90th country to join a global coalition aimed at eliminating remaining elements of the so-called Islamic State and stemming the flow of foreign militants to the Middle East.
Welcome. Welcome back to the program. In the Philippines, back-to-back storms have left widespread devastation. Just a week after a typhoon killed more than 200 people, another one has struck, displacing over 1 million and destroying homes across multiple provinces. Though the storm has weakened, the destruction is vast, and authorities say recovery will take months.
Super Typhoon Fung made landfall on Sunday night in Aurora Province on the island of Luzon with winds of up to 185 kilometers per hour and gusts nearing 230. Entire villages were submerged and landslide triggered by torrential rains swept away homes and roads. In Belair and neighbouring Dipacalao, towering waves smashed through seawalls and destroyed coastal roads. Residents say kilometres of highways were washed away, cutting off access to nearby towns.
The waves were so strong, battering the seawall until 3 houses collapsed. Safety comes first. It's better to lose a house than loved ones.
Authorities evacuated nearly 1.5 million people before the storm made landfall, one of the largest preemptive evacuations in recent years. Still, officials say at least 8 people have died and thousands of homes have been damaged or destroyed. In Bulacan Province, residents are left wading through waist-deep water as rescue boats deliver food and medicine. And in Kulumpit, floodwaters remain dangerously high, fueled by rising tides and overflowing rivers.
We are nervous and scared because of the continuous flooding and the back-to-back typhoons. People can't work, students can't go to school, and the elderly must evacuate every time.
The storm has paralyzed much of central and northern Luzon, with power lines down, schools and offices closed, and major highways blocked. Aid agencies have described the series of disasters, including a deadly earthquake in Cebu in September, as not routine, warning that the Philippines faces escalating climate and seismic risks. The U.S. Joint Typhoon Warning Center classified Fung as a Category 3 major storm, the 21st typhoon to hit the Philippines this year.
Meanwhile, in Jamaica, recovery efforts are still underway after Hurricane Melissa tore through the western region with record-breaking winds. The Category 5 storm left entire communities in ruins, killing at least 32 people and affecting over 1.6 million others. Many survivors remain without homes, food, or access to essential services.
Hurricane Melissa struck western Jamaica on the 28th of October, with winds of up to 185 miles per hour. It tore through the parishes of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, flattening homes and uprooting trees. Entire communities were destroyed.
Behind me, you can see that even large structure, strong walls, cannot resist to the force of such a storm. The whole city behind me of Black River, it's like a war zone.
The United Nations says 4.8 million tons of debris now block roads, schools, hospitals and markets. Relief workers are struggling to reach affected areas.
A top priority, therefore, for UNDP and our initial assistance is on debris management, clearing the pathways for aid and relief to get to these hard-stricken communities, and for setting the stage for early recovery.
In Savannah, Lamar, residents are still trying to salvage what's left of their homes. Schools, like Sir Clifford Campbell Primary, have been badly damaged, with classrooms torn apart and playgrounds buried under debris.
Oh, devastating, devastating. It's hard, really, really hard. People have been, even some now still in shelter. They don't go home as yet because the whole construction of them building blew right down.
Right now, food is most of them concerns, but to move from where, because some people still have nowhere to sleep.
The scale of destruction has deeply shaken the island's economy. The Prime Minister says damage to homes and infrastructure equals nearly a third of Jamaica's annual GDP. UN estimates show up to 90% of buildings in some areas were damaged and over 32,000 people displaced. The impact of Hurricane Melissa is also being felt across other countries in the region. In Cuba, nearly 3 million people are facing power cuts and crop losses, while in Haiti, at least 43 people have died and dozens remain missing. The UN and its partners are calling for urgent international support to help Jamaica and its neighbors rebuild. They warn that climate change is fueling more frequent and more powerful hurricanes, a stark reminder of the urgent need to strengthen resilience and preparedness for the storms yet to come.
And at COP30 in Brazil, global leaders and indigenous voices are calling for urgent action, demanding an energy transition that works for both the global south and the global north. With the Amazon as backdrop, delegates are being urged to deliver strong national plans, protect the forests and food systems, and turn climate promises into action.
COP30 marks 10 years since the Paris Agreement, when nations pledged to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. But the United Nations now says that overshooting that target is almost certain, and many key world leaders are absent from the talks this year.
Scientists tell us that overshooting 1.5 degrees is now inevitable, starting at the latest in the early 2030s. But how high and how long that overshoot lasts depends on the speed and scale of our actions today. To return below 1.5 degrees by century's end, global emissions must fall by almost half by 2030, reach net zero by 2050, and go on with net negative afterwards.
While renewable energy, particularly solar, is expanding faster than ever, global climate commitments still fall short of what is needed to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Scientists warn that surpassing this limit risks irreversible changes, including melting ice caps, rising seas, and extreme storms like Hurricane Melissa, whose intensity was amplified by warming oceans.
We suffer these climate emergencies, floods and inundations caused by outsiders destroying our land. There's still time to save the planet, but only if we unite without greed or political motives.
The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization has highlighted that worsening climate extremes are already threatening global food security.
It's not about the future, it's happening right now. Climate extremes are impacting food and agriculture today. They are reducing yields. The unpredictability of the weather is making it very difficult for farmers to harvest. One extreme event undermines an entire year, an entire harvest.
Humanitarian organizations are also drawing attention to how the climate crisis is intensifying disasters around the world, especially for the already vulnerable who contribute the least to carbon emissions.
2024 was the hottest year on record. We've already seen, with every further increment of global warming, more extreme weather events, more humanitarian disasters. And we've seen this in the past year, from flooding in South Sudan to drought in Afghanistan. We've just been through, and communities are still reeling from, Hurricane Melissa in the Caribbean, which was made 4 times more likely because of climate change.
Some observers have criticized previous COP summits for greenwashing, allowing governments and corporations to showcase climate credentials without taking real action. Yet, despite these concerns, major international agreements reached at COPs have driven progress that would not have been possible through national policies alone.
There are signs of hope. Countries are often under-promising and over-delivering. So we can hope that they will take action to reduce emissions much faster and further than they have officially committed in their NDCs.
As COP30 continues in the Amazon, the message from Belém is clear. The time for promises is past. The world must now act, not only to keep global warming within safe limits, but to ensure that those bearing the brunt of climate change are not left behind.
And that's the program today. Remember, you can catch all our top stories and more on channelstv.com. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.